Good morning, boys and girls. Can you hear me? Very good. So we're going to go back. The key findings of this: during its review, the OIM found significant gaps in the DPD, that's the Denver Police Department's use of internal controls to help manage officer use of force during these protests. Some of you will remember me saying, "Are you kidding me? Do you think I'm new to this? I'm live. I dare you to do it again." Well, when they did it again, they entered themselves into a contract of epic proportions. So, if you've been with us since May or before, then you're aware of many of these activities. For example, the Denver Police Department did not effectively track the less lethal munitions deployed by its officers and was unable to produce rosters of the officers who worked during the first 4 days of the George Floyd protests. They don't know who was on the job. They don't know who got a paycheck. Wait, what? Check this out. This is really ridiculous, folks. This public report says that they don't know who worked for the first 4 days of the protests. All those cops did their work for free. Nobody got a payroll check. You're kidding me? The Denver Police Department also could not produce body-worn cameras for many of the officers who policed the protests, and many officers did not complete written use of force statements until more than 12 days after the protest began. These issues, and others discussed in the report, were an obstacle to a thorough after-the-fact analysis of the DPD's use of force during these protests. They also point to an even bigger problem. A number of these internal controls could have played a role in command review of force while the events were unfolding. That is, DPD command personnel could have actually been watching. They could have reviewed tracking logs to determine whether certain teams or officers were exhausting supplies and munitions at disproportionate rates, and contemporaneous use of force statements to determine whether the force being used was in compliance with policy. Such novel thoughts. Just novel thoughts. Why would we want to see if our use of force was appropriate? Why would we want to hold each other accountable? Oh, I know why. Yeah. Because when you splatter all over Brian Moma or 9 News or 7 News or Channel 4, you've a lot of capsaicin in the air this morning. I put a little too much chili powder on my eggs, and it's seeping into the atmosphere this morning. So we have no idea whether the use of force was being used by certain teams, certain individuals at excessive rates greater than others, because they're not tracking these things, because they refuse to take the complaints. Right? These are the things that over the last 6 months my videos have exposed. But what we don't have is a team of people just exclusively watching my videos and getting all the badge numbers, getting all the faces, so that we can identify all these people, right? It's ridiculous. The deficient internal controls were a missed opportunity for greater managerial oversight of use of force by the Denver Police Department. Well, That's good to know. Further in their review of body-worn video, we observed examples of Denver Police Department's officers deploying less lethal munitions in ways that were extremely troubling, such at persons who were visibly objecting to police behavior and not engaged in apparent physical resistance. The OIM referred video of these incidents to the DPD for review and possible investigation. Our analysis also revealed areas of DPD policy, such as the lack of guidance on the use of high-risk explosive devices during crowd control events, that we believe can be improved. Ladies and gentlemen, I really want to make sure that you understand what's going on here, because we can't express this enough. Good morning, everybody that's enjoying this video this morning. I'm fresh out of the shower, working on my breakfast, and bringing this important and pertinent news to you this morning because there's a homeless sweep going on downtown, and there's a press conference at 10:30. Actually, it's not a press conference. It's a meeting, regularly scheduled meeting. So if you're in Denver, you should come downtown today and excuse me, examine that. I suppose city council members should start arriving by 9:30, maybe even 9 o'clock. But let us continue, because I do not want to digress. And by the way, should I forget, here's a link to the thing I'm reading. Further in our review of body-worn cameras, we observed these examples, right? They also, analysis revealed areas of DPD policy. Yeah, okay. So here's where some real fun meat and potatoes comes in. 18 neighboring law enforcement agencies provided aid to the Denver Police Department during the George Floyd protests. And the Office of the Independent Monitor also identified a number of important deficiencies in the framework the Denver Police Department used to organize that support. Personally, this is going to offend somebody. Most notably, the DPD had no mutual aid agreements in place with those agencies. It also permitted each agency I'm sorry, I lost my spot. DPD had no mutual aid agreements in place with those agencies. It also permitted each agency to follow its own guidance and guidelines about what force could be used and utilize less lethal tools that were not permitted under the Denver Police Department guidelines. So basically, if Aurora Police Department was out shooting up Denver Police Department had no control over that. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Right? So this activity, as it says, it potentially subjected protesters to force that would have not otherwise been utilized or authorized. That's a fact, Jack. That's a big fact, Jack. So, what do we do about this? Well, today there's a meeting in Denver. For those of you who want to come, 10:30 downtown at the City Hall. You can come object. So here's another thing. They referred certain issues to the police department for its own consideration. This included concerns expressed by DPD supervisors and officers that they received insufficient tactical and strategic direction in the field, that the single radio channel used for all police transmissions was overcrowded and often inaccessible, and that the DPD has not made enough recent investments in crowd control and field force operations training to properly prepare officers for an event like the George Floyd protests. So what they're saying is that they're not being trained for militaristic action against their own populations in a consistent enough basis for them to be responding effectively with use of force that doesn't object people, but that is considered appropriate. Their moral oath to the Constitution has to be included in this process, folks. I cannot express enough. But that's my opinion, and not the opinion of the Office of the Independent Monitor, whose report we are reading today. So, the recommendations. Well, in light of these findings, the Office of the Independent Monitor made 16 recommendations to the Denver Police Department regarding internal controls on the use of force. These are going to be good. Give me a second. I need to cut a few onions. Making breakfast over here in the background, huh? So what are these recommendations? How will Denver respond to them? Well, for the most part, we already know the answer to that question. And that's that Denver is going to give lip service. They'll say, yeah, we're going to do better. We're going to do something. The problem is that we've been saying this for too long. This isn't new. I've been at this for 2 years. They just can't figure it out. So what do we got going on here? Okay, so the 16 recommendations. The DPD amend its operation and crowd management manuals to require the creation of a log or tracking system for the distribution and deployment of all less lethal munitions. If I give you a package of 100 pepper balls, you can't dump a canister of them out on the street and then not report that you just left them laying on the ground, right? 2 hours after the fact, you got somebody walking down the street picking up 20 pieces of evidence. Yeah, that's not the right thing to do. My attorneys were busy yesterday, let me tell you. The DPD amended its crowd management manual to require the creation of rosters for all officers who are assigned to crowd control events, and that the DPD ensure that such rosters are created in the future. Crowd control events include homeless sweeps, where they put up fences to keep the people who are helping the homeless out. Right? Let's recognize that that's part of what this report is going to have an impact on, is the homeless sweeps. And the managerial process is attached therein. The DPD amended its operation and crowd control manuals to require that all sworn personnel working in the field during protest operations are required to wear body-worn cameras. Well, see, some of this is just redundant bullshit because the state law now requires it, so they're just coming into compliance with the state law that was created in outrage of these of the summer protests and the police activity during them, right? So most of this is lip service, ladies and gentlemen. The DPD amend its manuals to detail the specific requirements for the use of force, reporting, and review during crowd control operations. So basically, the cops have to wear cameras. They're going to say during future protest events, DPT ensure that its supervisors routinely issue multiple dispersal orders before using force to disperse crowds when time and circumstances permit. So they have to tell you they're going to hurt you before they do that. And it must be clear. This is the problem in this one. I'm going to I'm going to represent on that one. It must be clear, right? Just walking in and pushing people around and saying, move? No. If a government official such as Tay Anderson, if pastors of the American Baptist Church, if service workers employed by the city and county of Denver in the capacity of their job duties are attempting to interact with peace officers, a dispersal order is not exclusively the right answer. So I want to highlight that for your mental thought, folks, because dispersal orders are not the only thing that we can do. Okay? We can keep the gate open, put up a piece of tape, and continue the conversation, right? No, we can't. We have to assault people because that's what we do. We're the Denver Police Department. Ching! Magic badge. DPD ensure that all officers have their badges and badge numbers prominently displayed and easily visible on the exterior of their uniforms, protective gear at all times. At all times. There's no during future crowd control events. It's at all times. Period. Because that's what the law says. DPD supervisors should be required to verify compliance for each member of the teams under their command. That means the squad's prepping up, the unit's rolling on, they're rolling out. Everybody has to be checked before they get on their car. It's really simple, folks. This is not rocket science. This is not This is not creating a thermonuclear device here, folks. This is basic common sense. The DPD should ensure that only officers who have been trained and certified on the use of pepper ball and 40mm launchers are permitted to use them during crowd control events. Additionally, DPD should amend its crowd management manual to specify such things. Excuse me. And to enhance transparency, the DPD should evaluate how to most effectively operationalize each of the internal controls on the use of force discussed in the report and report back to the public with an explanation of how they will be employed in future events. Excuse me. What this specifically means is that they can't just shoot people up without an explanation. They have to actually tell you so that you know before it happens what's going to happen. Yeah? So these are the continuing points of the executive summary. That the DPD ensure transparency and they evaluate how to most effectively operationalize each of the internal controls in the use of force discussed in the report and report back how they're going to be used in the future. Because that's how they should do it. They should tell us how they're going to beat us up before they beat us up. I mean, at least when they say, I'm going to shoot you, you will know that they mean it. Regarding the substantive use of force issues and DPT policy, the OIM recommended that the Denver Police Department disallow the use of rubber ball. Excuse me. Disallow the use of rubber ball grenades during crowd control operations. Also, the DPD should articulate clear and specific standards for when rubber ball grenades may be used, by whom, and when their use is prohibited in its operations manual. The Denver Police Department should articulate clear and specific standards for when the use of noise/diversionary devices may be used, by whom, and when they are prohibited in its operations manual. The DPD should revise its standards for pepper ball use during crowd control situations to limit direct fired applications only to circumstances in which a person is displaying active aggression, or aggravated active aggression. Oh my God, I'm going to have to pull an Eric Brandt here, folks. We're going to get to that in a minute. Like, a minute being right now. Because I didn't even read this beforehand. Copy. Paste. No, that's not what I want to do. Aggravated. Activated active aggression, defined as physical actions which may or may not involve a weapon, which are likely to result in death or serious physical injury to an officer or another person. And that is actually from the Greensville, South Carolina Police Department. Their public use of force policy, which happens to be 4 pages long. Not very big, not very impressive. So we're not going to focus on that this morning. But the idea of aggravated active aggression means you have a weapon and you're going to hurt somebody. That book bag you're carrying, that umbrella in your hand, that baseball bat, or gun, or maybe the hoe or the rake, maybe your hand plow, right? They're going to say that they get to determine what your weapon is, and if it's a weapon. So regarding mutual aid, oh my God, this is so disgusting to me. And it's because I consider mutual aid helping people in... I know, I gotta go look it up, because we're just gonna get a good, answer, because mutual aid is people helping people. So in organization theory, mutual aid is a voluntary, reciprocal exchange of resources and services for mutual benefit. Mutual aid projects are a form of political participation in which people take responsibility for caring for one another and changing political conditions. That is the definition according to Wikipedia, folks. Unfortunately, I don't think that's the same intent that our peace officers are trying to identify. Anyway, regarding other paid police officers on the job, paid for by their county with no reciprocal cost to the Denver Police Department, that's what the concept of using the words mutual aid might mean, but I think that actually there may be paid efforts there. I'm not quite sure. The DPD developed mutual aid agreements. God, that word is just disgusting to me. With neighboring jurisdictions that address potential crowd control assistance. These agreements should adhere to best practices, including but not limited to specifying the circumstances under which assistance may be requested and provided, acceptable request methods, forms of assistance to be provided, and an agreed upon command and control structure. Like we said, when the Aurora Police Department or the Jefferson Sheriff's Department is hanging outside of District 6 Police Headquarters, shooting up the neighborhood and the people who live in their houses, threatening them with arrest for standing in their fenced-in front yards, That's inappropriate behavior. And therefore there should be guidelines that say you have to follow our rules if you're in our town. And our rules are that you can't do that shit. During future deployments in Denver, the DPD require that its partners adhere to the use of force policy, exactly, and utilize only types of weapons and munitions approved for use by the Denver Police Department. So if it's not in the DPD arsenal or it's banned from the DPD arsenal, you can't bring it to town. They're going to be using 12-foot beat 'em sticks before it's over. And they're going to use them with fun and glee. The Denver Police Department needs to seek to participate in periodic joint trainings and exercises with its potential partners to ensure a unified and consistent response during future deployments in Denver. Regarding additional issues referred to DPD for review, the OIM recommends that the DPD convene internal stakeholders to evaluate possible operational issues that arose during the George Floyd protest, including but not limited to concerns raised by officers and supervisors that there was too little guidance, that there weren't enough communications from on-the-ground field commanders conveying clear tactical and strategic objectives. We've watched that change over the last 6 months, haven't we? Where they're coming through and they're talking to him and they're tapping him on the shoulders and they're rotating him out again. The way it's supposed to be. That single radio channel used by all officers was often overcrowded. Right? They went to one single scrambled channel that they wanted to scramble and hide their communications. So it was all on one channel, it was overcrowded. Well, that's what you get for trying to hide your activity from people. And it was then inaccessible for the command post to communicate. And DPD needs to substantially increase its investments in crowd control and field force training to properly prepare officers for the possibility of other protests in the future. You need to learn how to be better at assaulting your people. Denver Police Department. That's what it really is saying. So we're going to share another screen here for a second. And there we go. So I should take a moment. Thank you all who are participating in here. Eric Brandt, good morning. Robert, Lacey, Newfie, No Justice. Some of you I can see in the chat here. Transparency Monitor, Rob B1. So glad you're all here today. Let's look at this. I'm not going to read the whole damn thing. It's 94 pages, but that's your opportunity. In 2 hours and 23 minutes, there's a public meeting at Denver City Hall. I'm going to be on my clock at a temporary seasonal job that allows me to pay some rent and heating expenses. I hope you can go protest, or at least be participatory. So, Nick Mitchell, the Independent Monitor, his hands are bound because he's bound the way the city is set up. So the Office of the Monitor's job is to ensure these complaint and commendation processes are available to all people. Okay? If you have a problem with the Denver Police Department or the Denver Sheriff's Office, these people are supposed to help you solve that problem. That's their job. When they do their jobs well, everybody gets rewarded. So when they're bad cops, cop, no donuts. So, food for thought. Bad cop, no donut. It's just some of their responsibilities here. There's the staff that wrote it, the policy. Oh my God, this thing is just killing me. All right, so there's the Office of Independent Monitor staff. Matthew, Alyssa, James, Greg, Nate, Kevin, Suzanne, Carrie, and Stephanie. And Nicole, and Taniqua, and Gianna, and Isaiah. Youth Outreach Project Coordinators. Look at that. They're getting kids involved. And that's a good thing, because we should be having our kids hold our peace officers accountable. It's their future we're depending on. This is a factual summary. The first 5 days were fucking crazy. Size and scale of it. Let's just get into the meat and potatoes here. Dear Mayor Hancock, see, this is why his hands are tied. Because he answers to that tyrant. I provide this enclosed report in response to a unanimous request from the City Council. Council asked for us to do some work, and we gladly did it. This is the investigation, the report summary. I'm just... So Murphy Robinson, Paul Pazin, they were involved. They had to be accountable to them, to the city and the taxpayers, and save their jobs. So we got to thank them for being involved. So we did the use of force, discovery, all that jazz. I'm looking for some pictures. Here we go. On the first day of the George Floyd protest, May 28th, crowds began to form at approximately 5 p.m. and word quickly spread that a significant protest was growing near the Capitol. Although the protest largely developed organically, numerous people organized and social media posts drew many people downtown. It caught the police off guard. It should have. They had 2 days. Had 2 days to prepare. So they were caught off guard with how quickly the protest swelled and the anger of some in the crowd. How are you surprised at the anger of some in the crowd? I mean, been brutalizing people for so long, right? This is Denver. We're surprised. You know why they're surprised? Because they don't live in our city, right? When they go home at night after moving the homeless, or some of the things that go on in our communities, the abuses, they don't go to Denver. They go to Brighton or Broomfield or Thornton, Lakewood, whatever. DPD immediately opened a command post, and the incident commander was appointed to assume primary command responsibility. In the first day and throughout the protest, the incident commander monitored the flow of video footage from hundreds of high-activity location observation cameras spread throughout downtown to assess and direct traffic. To facilitate a management of the police response, divided the protest area into 3 sections: 16th, Broadway, Lincoln, and Civic Center Park. Right? So these are the corridors. You get the neighborhoods that they were rolling through. in this area here, the Civic Center Park, they don't even have, this is ridiculous because they don't even have District 6 Police Department engaged in the 3 corridors, right? Their own office. So this is a very, very bad thing to start with, folks. And if you're paying attention to the details, the detail here is that the District 6 Police Department is roughly where this cross is right here. There's a black cross on this map, and that feels like the proximity. I can't zoom in. Maybe I can. Let's see. See if we can zoom in on this. Yes, we can. There we go. No, that's not even it. It's an actual church. So the police department's over here. I don't know how this whole area of Cap Hill wasn't considered primary target zone when that's where a lot of the activity that was happening occurred. Just keeping it real for y'all. Zoom back out. So the officers deployed in these sections, and its commander assigned a lieutenant to each. Teams of Metro SWAT and gang unit. There they are, the gang unit. They use tactical vehicles such as rapid deployment, RDVs, to respond to hotspots throughout downtown. This is where they were driving around and shooting people all day, all night. This soon proved unworkable, however, prompting DPD to consolidate communication with all officers into a single channel. So they didn't get it right. Their shit was all fucked up. Good answers. On the first day, protesters divided into 2 primary groups. One initially stayed near the Capitol and moved toward District 6. Another one west and entered I-25. I didn't even know about the I-25 incident, folks, until after the fact, right? There's too much going on. So, what happened? Officers were directed to parallel each group and respond as needed. At 5:30, there were gunshots near the Capitol. As night approached, the DPD determined it would need additional officers and placed a citywide call for assistance. A citywide call for assistance. The funny thing is that most of the police officers don't actually live in Denver. So, a citywide call for assistance doesn't do that much. Except maybe to bring officers from other departments in. As discussed later, DPD records are inconclusive about the number of officers who policed the protest during its first 4 days. They estimated that between 150 and 200 officers were working the protest on the first day. 150 to 200 officers. Bunch of them must have been working for free. Or are they protecting the officers by not telling who was there? As nighttime was there were some confrontations, some violent, with officers deploying less lethal munitions, taking out people's eyeballs, shooting them in the chest and the heart, tear gassing, and using chemical agents and against people just driving by in their cars that were pregnant. The first night, 28 people were arrested. Multiple civilians were seriously injured. Multiple. Something like 7 people lost their eyes during this protest, I think. 7. So, By the second day, more people are arrested. More shit's going down. It's just a shit show. And on May 31st, between 450 and 500 officers were deployed, right? Actually, before that, on May 30th, curfew was assessed. Oh, man. If you guys don't have this, I need to save this now because my day is already moving fast. And so this is the report right here. You want to make sure that you get that. This is the whole physical operation going on here. Exactly, right? Who's lying? Who really knows what's going on around here? So there's the link, folks, if you want to follow along at home and read this on your own. So on May 30th, 450 to 500 people were out. From Denver Police Department and offices of departments across the state. Partner organizations were working. This is double, 3 times from previous 2 days. And as day turned to night, there was violence in the street that resulted to injuries in civilians and some officers. 64 arrests were made, the vast majority for curfew violations. The next day, 102 protest related arrests, including curfew. Peace officers and civilians were injured. By some accounts, on June 1st, because the chief was trying to do things differently, check this out. By many accounts, June 1st, the 5th day of protest, had a different character than the previous days. Chief Paul Pazin marched with the protesters during the day, clearly voicing his desire to work together toward making positive change in Denver. Mayor Hancock extended the curfew to June 4th and pushed the curfew time to 9 p.m. At night, there was limited activity in Civic Center Park. Protesters held a moment of silence for George Floyd outside the Capitol. Even though 550 DPD and partner officers were assigned to the protests and made 124 arrests, more than any single day previous, the chaos of the first 4 days was coming to pass. In total, another 111 arrests happened after the 5th day. But much more limited violence, much more reduced aggression. Excuse me, folks. Here is a copy of the link for your personal review. Too tall? And because this thing goes on. In short, it's saying that in Denver's history, protests have often been unidirectional and included coordinated marches with rallies and speeches at the Capitol, and other facilities. So, for example, an Occupy Denver protest started at the Civic Center Park, made a loop through Cap Hill, marched down the mall, and returned to the Capitol. That march was so coordinated that when the people leading it made a wrong turn, organizers quickly got them back on track because they were behind schedule. Similarly, after 2016, shooting of Philando Castile, hundreds of people marched along the wall in Denver and it ended at the Capitol. During that protest, police escorted the protesters and blocked traffic on their behalf. Unfortunately, we're not used to watching people get executed on public television, on their computers. And because the scale of protests were much more than our police departments are used to, we couldn't handle it. Protesters stayed out past midnight. Oh my God. 10,000 people or more were expected on the streets. The community was angry. They wanted to turn their aggression against repetitive offenders, like the Denver Police Department, District 6. But we couldn't have that, because that would have been chaos. They protested from 10th in Acoma to 16th in Wazee to Colfax and Downing. This was a huge swath of land. We're not used to controlling our city in such unexpected numbers. That people would walk out of their houses and start yelling at us. We're understaffed. Their complaints are. Right? They're saying police officers got hurt too. 81 officer injuries, 11 officers placed on limited duty, and 4 needing to take time off of work. So mostly it was 15 officer injuries, not 81. Because, you know, if you got a little boo-boo, that didn't count. They also recognize it's been decades since something of this scale happened against their peace officers. There's data. Folks, I'm just on 15. Oh. So folks, there's just so much here. I'm only on page 7. Property damage. Private businesses reported $2 million in damage. The city had 100, or 1 million. $76,000 in police vehicle damage. More than 400 arrests. 50 arrests included weapons charges. 33 firearms were seized. Some DPD officers who spoke with described the physical or emotional after effects from policing the George Floyd protest that linger to this day. They're traumatized. They can't believe that they were finding such glee in beating citizenry. They never experienced the anger and rage of systemic oppression on such a personal scale before. Similarly, some community members have described anger, trauma, and a loss of confidence based on these experiences. We don't want our police to get joy out of beating us. There shouldn't be a reward for killing people. There's a very significant trust damage between peace officers who don't live in the city and the residents who do. That's where we're at today. And that's why in 2 hours, Paul Pazin will be at City Hall. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my hour. I've been at this for way too long, doing too much stuff. There's a 94-page report here. Look, I'm just getting into the good things. Pepper ball launchers, pepper balls, 40mm launchers, OC foggers, gas and smoke grenades, rubber ball grenades. I have all of these, except for this red one right here. This red can, I don't have that one. But I have one of those blue ones. I have a black tipped one. I have gas and smoke grenades. I have rubber ball grenades. I have flashbangs. There's no photo of that. Pre-protest inventory and ordered during the protest. 66,000 rounds. .40mm rounds, rubber ball grenades, gas grenades, smoke grenades, OC foggers. Here's how much it cost. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands, $200,000. Officer Rush. I mean, the list goes on, folks. It's just nonstop. So, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on in the chat, folks. What I do know is that this is the screen I want you to see next. Sharing screens over here. Boom. Denver City Council. Tuesday. No. Today. Today's Wednesday the 9th. What's happening on the 9th, Brian? Oh, glad you asked. The Safety, Housing, and Education Safety, Housing, Education, and Homelessness Committee is having a meeting. Their agenda, I'll show you in a moment. Gotta change tabs again, huh? Agenda. Share. So there's an office from the Independent Monitor. There's a intergovernmental agreement with Denver in regards to child abuse and medical evaluations, consultation services. I'm going to share with you this link right here, folks. If you're paying attention right now, that's good. That is the link for the meeting, and the password is Denver. Can you see that on the screen? Password is Denver. So, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time today. It's been an hour. We're going to end the stream. We're going to encourage you to come to City Hall, to come check out this briefing. And there's a presentation that's going to happen today. So, thank you for hanging out. Please, the public session, Frank, is in the hallway prior to everybody arriving. It's outside the building. And I suppose that a full room will benefit because it'll be probably broadcast live as well on Channel 8, if I remember correctly. Hopefully somebody else can get there and protest, but I won't be able to do that. Frank Blivitz, I appreciate you. I need to get your phone number. I just realized I don't have it. Alpha Man, thank you so very much. Frank Sturgill, Thanicus Lupus, and everybody else in the stream, thank you so much for being here. We'll talk to you soon.